American girls would seriously dig me with my cute British accent.
For 23 years, I've wondered about this joke.
You don't have a cute British accent.
It seems like a cute British accent.
Yes, I do.
I'm just on the wrong continent, that's all.
But I'm not just concerned about the accents in Love Actually. It's a broader problem that I have. What am I missing when it comes to British accents? As an American, I'm trying to figure it out. I even got the sponsor, KiwiCo, to go all in on England. I talked to an accent coach.
Can you just say for me the word D-O-O-R?
Door.
Very good.
I caught up with some of my favorite English YouTubers.
Is that Love Actually?
I have seen Love Actually, but not for a long time.
It's Love Actually.
And I even chatted with somebody who is from just a few minutes away from this guy.
I was born and raised in Essex, so where Basildon is.
British accents are a complex code of class and culture that, to American ears, just sound the same. I want to give us an easy-to-follow guide to understand movies and TV shows like this better. And in the process, I want to track down the truth about a 23-year-old joke.
My cute British accent.
If you don't know, Love Actually features a character named Colin Frissell, played by actor Chris Marshall.
Please welcome Chris Marshall.
He plays a non-posh guy, a caterer, who wants to go to Wisconsin because he believes all the women will fall in love with him there. I was in Wisconsin in 2003, and I believe that this was basically a documentary.
Oh my God. Are you from England?
Yes.
But I didn't understand what was really happening in each scene because I didn't understand British accents. Colin said that he was from Basildon.
Yep, Basildon.
And the women were impressed.
Oh.
Honestly, I was too. But what was Basildon?
My first question is, what is his accent?
Excellent question. I would characterize this as something called estuary.
That's Jack. He is an accent coach, and while he's really good at the technical training to nail an accent, he's also really good at decoding some of the cultural cues that those accents signify, and I needed his help. So to start, what does estuary even mean? You can see on my globe right here, actually, that the River Thames empties into the North Sea. That's the estuary. I'm telling you about this because the sponsor of today's video is KiwiCo. If you don't know, they send you these crates that you can kind of do these amazing educational but still really entertaining activities with. I had my 7-year-old make this Big Ben, and I made this globe. He's psyched about it. Look how it turns. Isn't that amazing? And these crates, they're packed full of like little surprises, whether it's in the instructions or this little pin that came with the Big Ben one. Don't worry, I am gonna give this to my 7-year-old shortly. So if you wanna try or give one of these engaging projects for future STEM engineers, go ahead and click on the link in my description or go to kiwico.com/PhilEdwards. Promo code is PhilEdwards. You'll get 50% off your first monthly crate. So thank you to them for supporting this channel, and let's go ahead and get back to the estuary. Estuary is where the Thames meets the North Sea. So we're going to start with London accents. In the fancy parts of central London, you have received pronunciation, or RP. Hugh Grant was born and schooled in West London. And RP is what might closely be considered BBC English, though that is constantly changing.
A relationship based on the president taking exactly what he wants and casually ignoring all those things that really matter to Britain.
But basically, it's like a British upper class accent, and that is the story point that it is trying to get across, that this is a respectable person. That might be why people attempted RP in the most recent Gladiator sequel.
I'd love to say the Romans.
I prefer to sacrifice a Roman.
Outside of received pronunciation, there are more story points that happen in the London area. In Love Actually, Hugh Grant's love interest, played by Martine McCutcheon, is from Hackney, and her accent is distinctive too.
Before this film, she was famous in England from being on EastEnders, which is set in the East End of London, which is where kind of Cockney originated from.
Not a nice guy, actually.
Yes, so in this scene, the one kind of telltale word would be the word nice.
Not a nice guy, actually.
he were to say it, Hugh Grant, it would probably be somewhere in the region of I, nice.
Very nice to meet you.
And if we slow that down again, it's got two parts. It goes, I, nice.
Very nice, very nice, very nice.
Whereas she says, nice.
A nice guy, a nice guy, a nice guy.
Estuary, meanwhile, sits as this casual form, not Cockney, but also not Hugh Grant. Think a regular guy or girl.
You can't leave the fox and the chicken together.
Cockney has somewhat been supplanted by MLE in London, Multicultural London English, though both tend to indicate non-elite backgrounds in TV and film.
I was born and raised in Essex, so where Basildon is, but I'm from right near Basildon, literally a few miles away.
How would you describe your accent?
Essex, really. That's kind of what it is. It's like an Essex accent. Like,
okay,
it's quite well known in the UK.
Yeah.
It's quite a kind of stereotyped accent. There was a TV show we had called Towie, The Only Way is Essex.
I've been speaking with Junaid.
We was all at a festival. Junaid come up to you gave him a kiss and a cuddle, and he outright asked you if there was a problem.
A lot of it comes from after the Second World War. What happened is the Blitz had happened. Lots of homes were destroyed, primarily in the East End of London, because they were kind of the working class communities. And so there was kind of an exodus of people into Essex and the kind of surrounding areas. And so it's a bit of a mix of like the old kind of East End, like Cockney accent, and then like the slightly softer, like countryside accents.
So already you can see the enormous complexity involved. And we haven't even left the London metro area. Except it is more complicated than that. All of these voices sit at the intersection of a few different factors. So there is accent.
Set an alarm for 10:30.
Set an alarm for 10:30.
There's dialect.
Cauliflower, courgette, and celery.
And so you can have dialect without accent. And you can also have accent without dialect. There are lots of words that sound different in different accents, but they're universal to a language. And then there is also biography, which is where you moved around when you were a kid, where you lived, where you went to school.
My accent's a bit funny because it's a bit of a weird mix. So my dad is from London and my mum's from Scotland. So she's from the borders of Scotland. So I've got kind of a bit of a strange one because I was born and raised in Essex, so where Basildon is, but there's some bits of certain vowels I'll pronounce with a slightly more kind of Scottish, towards the Scottish end of things rather than Essex. So for example, like sure, so S-U-R-E, I say that in a way in Essex, that'd be more like shore, like the shore at the beach. Whereas I say it sure. So there's a few things like that. So I've got a bit of a funny one.
Are you going to dip it in yogurt? Cover it with chocolate buttons?
It's so hard to separate his voice from his
Yeah,
accent.
and this is where we kind of move into the realm of idiolects, the way that specific people sound that might be iconic, but are specific to them. Vowel-wise, he probably is falling into that RP realm, but because of the way that his voice resonates, we wouldn't necessarily attribute it to that.
There's also actual acting that interfaces with all of this. Michael Caine grew up in South London, but his Cockney accent in these three movies is slightly different.
My name is Harry Palmer. My name is
Alfie.
Alfie. That's my name.
The final dimension is time. All of this means that we have to consider the idiolect of different actors as well as all the accent stuff, and that includes Colin, aka Chris Marshall. He grew up part of his life in Canada, but he was schooled in the West Country. It's only then that he attempted his Basildon accent, which is really its own thing. So if we want to understand British accents, we have to think a little bit about how accents in stories actually function. I talked to Andy Burgess from Faultline, Brendan Miller, and Chris Spago about accents and British accents, and they all told me similar stuff about class.
The thing in England is that as soon as someone opens their mouth, other English people are trying to locate you based on your accent in terms of region, but also in terms of like your kind of privilege and class.
So I would describe the north of England how you're describing the south.
Yeah, there's just a very strong class element to accents in Britain as well, and in England particularly. that is also something that if you don't have that context, you might miss out on clues in media that are, you know, they might bring a character on with a certain accent, and that's meant to sort of signal that this is a working class person, or this is meant to signal that this person is middle class and posh.
It gets a similar stereotype. It's like the North is the working class. It's the stronger accents. You know, the Southerners are like the rich people who have these like Queen's English accents. You're starting to see way more of these accents pop up. Which I think is really cool.
We'll limit ourselves to English accents because Irish, Scot, and Welsh accents have primarily national cues. To me, it is a spectrum of class and urbanity. Here are the previous London accents plotted on this chart. So you can start to see this chart shaping up a little bit. I want to also show you how American Hollywood accents would show up on this, because I think it shows us that our task is not that daunting. See, here you've got a newsy type, a mafia type. These both kind of fit in this area. Here you have a generic accent matching to RP, and then you have a Southern accent, a cowboy accent, a Midwestern accent, the Southern American accent that's over here, like Victoria Ratliff's wealthy matriarch in White Lotus. It is exceedingly rare.
We flew over the North Pole.
The number of American accents in stories is kind of limited, and that helps us to get a handle on English accents and what story points they might be trying to get across. Northern is going to be down here for characters from the country, and here for ones from cities like Manchester. You'll also find these for Western characters. So how do we suss out these accents? The first key is roticity.
Can you tell me a little bit about roticity and how that's different from, say, rotisserie chicken or something like that? 'Cause that's what I'm so glad I didn't flub it, but I was like worried as I was reading that I was gonna screw it up.
A word I had never heard until I did my master's, honestly.
Really?
And it was something I didn't even realize I was doing, which I had done my whole life. So yes, it is a feature that can go unnoticed if it's not something that you're looking for. But roticity is all about how you use the letter R in a word. Now, in a non-rhotic accent, like mine, then you only make a specific sound for that letter R when it is before a vowel.
Peter Hall took over to manage the move to the South Bank.
And so, okay, so my one tangent on that is occasionally I try to do an impression of a British actor doing an American accent poorly. And I find that my go-to is to kind of overemphasize the R. So
Absolutely.
I parked the car, you know, like they ham it up so much, you know, my British accent would be terrible too. But that's because they're kind of overcompensating for the roticity. Is that
That's exactly right. Yeah, and that happens a lot. The two traps for people with a non-rhotic British accent kind of doing an American accent is either over egging the R, like, Peter, what are you doing here? Or then accidentally missing it in one place, like, Peter, what are you doing here?
So we can plot roticity in our chart here. A soft or dropped R is our clue for posh. A hard one is a clue to working class. However, there's an asterisk. Dropping the R is a universally Southern thing, but that actually happens across classes. Look in Love Actually.
You're the Prime Minister, for God's sake.
This is the Prime Minister.
What separates them is another vocab word that I think is actually worth your time. It is the glottal stop, the glottal stop.
It's a cracking little soundbite.
The roticity cue also works for West Country accents. In Treasure Island, actor Robert Newton exaggerated his West Country accent, and he basically invented the definitive pirate voice.
Proper on a cold night, didn't it? Did your mother ever put a drop of rum in it?
Good and strong.
Another big key is the bath line. Somewhere around here, you'll hear bath start to become bath.
Okay, let's get ready for a bath.
Okay, let's get ready for a bath.
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 But even once I knew these basic cues, it had me asking another question. What happened to the rest of the country?
Look, I've made my declaration of faith. I observe the 5 pillars.
This is Chris Marshall, Colin from Love Actually, in Citizen Khan. He's doing a Birmingham or Brummie accent in this scene.
I've made my declaration of faith.
Yeah.
It's that same melody.
So it's largely the rhythm of his speech that is tipping it off to you rather than specific words necessarily, or
the pitch variation that he uses.
I obviously knew about Liverpool from the Beatles, but I didn't really know anything about the accent from consuming media. It shows up in a show, Scouser, which is about Liverpool and features Martin Freeman doing a Liverpudlian accent.
We hear where you're coming from, mate.
And then one of the most unique features to Liverpool is that
I'm just sick of all this.
So that final instead of sick of all this, sick of
I'm just sick of all this.
Exactly, very good.
This left me a little humiliated. I was naive. I thought that I understood a little bit about English culture, but I was kind of like a little kid, just the same way that Hollywood only shows a sliver of America. The British film and TV industry only show a sliver of that place, too. In the face of this, I wondered, could I actually track down his accent?
So he's not immediately giving you this sort of Basildon feel?
Sounded a little bit posh to me. It sounded like Southern English. So my best bet would be somewhere either in London or like in the kind of like posher areas nearby it. So maybe like Surrey, or I'm trying to think.
Oh yeah, interesting.
Yeah, kind of. It sounds kind of posh, really.
Really?
So,
What
yeah.
makes it sound a little bit posh to you? Are you able to ID what might sound a little bit posh?
I think partially it's the fact that there's like a softness to it, but not in like a kind of, with like more northern accents, you have more of a kind of up and down, more of a kind of musicality to it. And that's with the softness, but it feels quite soft.
So there's this whole subplot where he's himself and he's supposed to be playing what we assume to be a somewhat boorish but working class guy, because he's like catering and stuff. So he's not, he's not a rich dude or anything. Mm-hmm. And he decides that he's going to go to Wisconsin in America,
right, okay,
because all the girls will instantly fall in love with him. Do you think that would happen?
Absolutely not. The Essex accent is not renowned for being a very attractive one.
You're wrong. You're wrong. We don't understand. We don't know.
Right. Okay. In the UK, we have a terrible reputation. It's not.
So there's this one line where he says, the girls will love me because of my cute little accent. And so that would be a joke.
Yeah.
I think it is important to try to understand these accents as stories. There's a lot of great linguistic detail on YouTube, but the thing that English people care about, the class connotations, the cultural connotations, that is somewhat overlooked. And I think that it really helps you understand what stories are being told. By making this little chart, I'd made great progress on my mental map, but I still felt a little upset. However, I also had a test for my English friends.
I'm going to show you a scene from Love Actually to see if you could identify a flaw.
Something in this scene is incredibly wrong for that setting.
Can I help you? Yes. I'd like a Budweiser, please. King of beers. Any bud coming up?
Well, you said it was something visual.
Supported like a hat or something like that.
Like something, he did something that was weird in America?
Is it something about what she's wearing?
I mean, she was wearing a big coat.
He orders a Budweiser.
Yeah.
There's Budweiser covering the walls everywhere. In reality, I went to high school and college in Wisconsin, and I'm from around Milwaukee. They hate Budweiser in Milwaukee.
Wait, what? That's insane.
Wisconsin is the home of Miller beer and also to some degree Pabst beer. And so literally I never had a Budweiser beer until I did a video that related to Budweiser.
That's really interesting. Yeah, because it wouldn't be something that we ever really picked up on, to be honest.
That is the kind of hyper-local knowledge that a British person is just not going to have, for sure.
We never drink Budweisers or Millers. Miller, I don't think I've ever seen a Miller. I'd love to drink a Miller. My name's Miller.
We both have a lot to learn about each other, but I think that learning a couple of basics is a good step forward. And we can start by saying that he doesn't have a very cute accent.
Yes, I do.
All right, that's it for this one. Thank you for watching. This really did start with me wanting to better understand what messages were being sent in English TV and movies. Like, for example, I asked Jack about Gareth in the British Office, and his harder R's kind of indicate a more rural background, which totally fits and yet completely went over my head when I was watching this show. So there's all sorts of stuff like that.
Fox is a farmer's worst enemy. He should just drown the fox in the river.
I want to tell you a little bit more, though, about one accent that I left out, which is the hyper posh accent, and also the king and queen, the royal accent, which is a little bit different from RP. And so I want to get into that a little bit in the newsletter. If you don't know, every video I put out a free newsletter on Patreon. You check it out for free. All right, I'll see you next time.